Hello.
Hello and good morning.
Good morning and hello.
That's backwards.
This is our Christmas show and our
It
Hanukkah
is.
show.
Are you gonna sing for us?
No,
Oh,
but I
okay.
always I always love Christmas and Hanukkah. It's a favorite time of year.
You know, I've seen an interview with you singing "It's Christmas Time." I did see it, and you did a really good job. You're a good singer and a good dancer and a good doctor. Although I hope he's not frozen to you guys, but you are Dr. R to me. But it's okay. Let's get started for our Christmas show. That's right. And guess what? Starting off Christmas is going to be the hormone estrone
All right.
because I know, right? Great Christmas question. Um, the questionnaire comes in and says, we do not talk a lot about estrone. Um, is it bad if it's high? And also, why is it known as the bad hormone? Is it bad? Oh dear, what happened here?
Again, I love the
I
question,
love the question.
Yes,
uh,
they're good questions.
and
And
I'm getting an echo. Absolutely, isn't this terrific?
Apparently, they're saying no echo.
Yes, I definitely hear it. Well, let's see. Maybe that's great.
Yeah,
Um, Estrone, I don't know where it got that bad reputation. It's not bad any more than oxygen is bad. It's good. It's part of a natural biochemical progression. In fact, estrone is very important because it's the way the body transports estradiol around through the bloodstream. So, at any rate, this is what it looks like. If anyone who loves to read biochemical roadmaps, this is
favorite
what
thing
it
to do
looks
for me.
like. Estradiol gets converted. Estradiol is E2 in the female body. Estradiol gets converted to estrone, which is known as E1, and that gets converted to 16 alpha hydroxyestrone and etc. 2 hydroxy, and so that's the biochemistry of it. So estrone is as natural as estradiol, is as natural as oxygen, as natural as CoQ10 in our bodies. It's not bad. It's
How to
good.
get that reputation?
I don't know. Um, I haven't run across it as bad. You know, estrogen developed a bad reputation, which was wrong science,
Right.
absolute wrong science. And I don't know why they attribute it to estrone, but estradiol, estrone, estrogens in general had a bad reputation beginning in 2002 with the Women's Health Initiative that was wrong reporting. They even said so in the Women's Health Initiative. Obviously, people did not read that the slight increase in breast cancer rate that they reported was statistically insignificant, which in science
Right.
means it has no meaning. And by 2006, that there was not even a 1.26; it had gone down to 1. 1 means no increased risk. Premarin itself had a 0.79 relative risk, which means it was women who took Premarin had less of a risk of breast cancer than women who took no hormones at all. So estrone is very important. It's at a pivotal point in the metabolization of these estrogens because how hormones work is they're produced in the ovary, the ovarian hormones, and they're put out into the circulation and they go out and do their thing. Then they're picked up by the liver and they're transformed into things called metabolic byproducts. And estrone is pivotal in that because it's from estrone that the principal biologic byproducts are made, the metabolites. So celebrate estrone. We love estrone. Men love testosterone, women love testosterone. These are wonderful hormones. Estrone is about 80% as potent as estradiol. Estradiol is the most potent of the estrogen, and estrone is about twice and a little more as prevalent as estradiol. That means there's more
Right.
estrone in a young, healthy woman than there is estradiol. And just to add a little goodie, there's a third active estrogen called estriol, E3, and it's
Love
more
it.
than 1.3 times as prevalent as the sum of estrone and estradiol. We include estrone when we're assessing estrogen potency, when we're prescribing topical estrogens to women, and we do some math called we add up the estradiol and the estrone, and we call those the total potent estrogens because they are. And the math is not perfect because estrone again is about 80% as potent as estradiol, but it gives us a good idea about potency. So anyway, there's some things about estrone. Celebrate it. Great stuff.
Thank you for saying that because, yeah, it gets kind of a bad rap. And I just, for me, Carolyn Shapiro, I don't really know why, but now you've explained it. And eloquently so, as always. Thank you. Um, Another woman writes in, I just joined this great group, and I'm wondering how it is that one lowers stress hormones. nice,
There's the
nice small
question of
question.
the century. Yes, wonderful, wonderful thought. One lowers the stress hormones, and let's just name what those stress hormones are. There's at the vanguard of the biology of the stress response, the fight or flight response, is the hormone adrenaline and cortisol. Those two, they come out of the adrenal glands. However, these ovarian hormones are useful and are recruited for the stress response. So, additional stress hormones are estrogens, testosterone, DHEA. These are all mobilized in the biochemistry and biology of the fight or flight response. So is thyroid hormone for that matter. It's very energizing. So these are
Right.
the stress related hormones. Now, notice this that they're not just stress hormones. Every hormone I just named is imperative for the normal functioning of everything that we do, say, think, sleep, everything. All those hormones, their primary function is for our benefit and health and vitality and vigor and joy and pleasure. These are some of the most potent biochemicals for mood, for energy, for strength, down and down and down. They are recruitable. They have a secondary function called if a saber-toothed tiger jumps into your living room and you need to fight or flee, you're going to mount a powerful biology, and these hormones double up for that, and they're recruited for that stress response. So they get elevated. They get elevated for a while. After a while, if you keep triggering the biochemistry of the stress response, the fight or flight response, your body can't keep up with it. So
Right.
most young people, yeah, they can mount a powerful fight or flight response. And then you get into your 30s, and yeah, most 30-year-olds can still have enough glandular power to put out some extra juice there. Start getting in your 40s and 50s, oops, if you've been doing too much biology of the stress response, you start getting lower hormones. So the elevated hormones of the stress response is not an eternal thing. You know, you get 50s and 60s, and when we test women and men, of course, this is not particular to women, we see evidence of lowered hormones in general because the glands have had too much demand put on them. And when the stress has been severe, we'll even see significantly low hormones, even cortisol and its
Right.
metabolites. So now, how do you reduce the stress hormones? Here's the answer. you develop emotional and consciousness and choice skills to deal more elegantly and effectively and successfully and wisely with the stresses of life. You know, I've periodically you hear someone say, "Well, you got to get rid of your stress." Yeah, tell me all about it. Stress
Ain't
is a
gonna
part of
happen.
human stress is a very important, crucial, critical part of life for human beings on earth. If the stress wasn't there and we didn't have to meet up with it, we'd probably lay around and not do a heck of a lot more. But we get inspired by that stress. It energizes us. We gotta respond to it. And the issue is that the majority of human beings at this time, this primitive time in human consciousness history, this terribly primitive time, looks like we can go to the moon and play around in space, but as far as consciousness goes, we're still living in very primitive times, with the exception now of millions of women and men on this planet who've decided to take on the healing of their consciousness, their emotions, their mind, their lives, their ability to be happy, their ability to love, their connection with the divine. This is different than when I was growing up as a teenager. These people were not very common. There was a rumor that they lived in caves in India, and there were
And that's all they did.
and periodically some teacher would surface. Great, but they were not common nowadays. Oh my God, it's wonderful. You go on the internet, you can access the brilliant support and information and tools of hundreds and hundreds of teachers who speak specifically about life, about emotions, about the mind, about love, about healing, about spiritual healing, about emotional healing. And then there's a lot of work being done up close and in person, that's for sure. COVID put a little dent in that. It turned virtual, a lot of it, but we'll get back online here. So the bottom line is to acquire information, tools, and support to become excellent at living. The cure for stress is living. And to get there, sometimes we really gotta improve our choices about who we go into relationship, how we behave in relationship, how we communicate, how authentic we are, how truthful we are. But bottom line, and here's, I'm going to go a little deeper into this. We came to Earth, as in my view of things that I've learned, this is not I didn't invent this view. We came to Earth as human beings. We have sparks of the divine. We may be a spark of the divine. We are linked to the divine. We're living, breathing sparks of the divine. We're living energy of love. That deep within inside of us, we have a direct connection to the divine. And many people seek that connection through many different techniques, including meditation, for example. We become aware and conscious of who we really are, which is love. We're living energy of love. That's fun. It's fun to get that awake and that conscious, to discover that. But we're only at a certain phase of our own development, our own wisdom path. Even though we have wonderful aspects to us, we also have much unfinished business. And most of us have come to Earth with a lot of unhealed emotions and thoughts. For example, many of us have come to Earth with residual and repressed fear, sadness, anger, shame, guilt, emptiness, loneliness, meaninglessness, hopelessness. We come to Earth with it. And then it starts leaking out, just like an abscess. It wants to come to the surface to heal, and it comes to the surface periodically in events in our life. So you could have an event of falling in love, and then you could, for example, the relationship wasn't working out, and you could get terribly triggered and upset. You could have deep sadness and fear. I'm just giving you examples, but here's the bottom line. Become knowledgeable about your emotions and become skillful at being able to work with your emotions and your repressed emotions in a healthy, safe way so you don't act them out. So you become great at uncovering what's repressed. Or when it comes to the surface in some way or form or another, triggered by business, triggered by health issues, triggered by relationships, when the fear, these are emotions I'm talking about, sadness, anger, shame, guilt, emptiness, loneliness, meaninglessness, hopelessness, comes to the surface and you get aware of it, what is required is skills to deal with it in a very safe way. And so if everyone out there in the audience will close your eyes, I want to give you a safe way.
I'll take
And,
it.
and pause for a moment and see if you can feel the emotion you're feeling right now. Whatever it is. Could be feeling happiness, could be feeling love, could be feeling scared, could be not able to identify your emotions. Whatever you're feeling, make an effort to feel it. You're making an effort to become aware of what you're feeling, and you're making a second effort to actually feel that feeling. And just breathe and feel that feeling, whatever that feeling is. Just breathe and feel. Notice I'm not saying get rid of that feeling. I'm not saying change that feeling. I'm not saying heal that feeling. I'm just saying be conscious of it and feel it. This is a very safe way to feel any feeling. You're doing so in the privacy of your own mind, your own emotions, your own self. You're not blasting anyone. You're not striking out in anger. You're not screaming in fear. You're just breathing and feeling whatever you're feeling. And take a deep breath and continue to feel this for as long as you're willing or able, or it makes sense to you to do so. And open your eyes. This is a technique called identifying and feeling your feelings. And what you're doing, if you stay conscious of them, what you're simultaneously doing is you're doing a technique called acceptance. You're accepting the part of yourself that's carrying uncomfortable feelings. And acceptance is one arm of unconditional love. So you want to develop your ability to accept yourself and love yourself unconditionally. Oh boy, does that translate to everybody in your reality. If you take care of your own pain in a healthy way by recognizing, feeling, and accepting it, then you're doing a practice called unconditional love of your own self. Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a technique to get skilled at owning and becoming responsible for and dealing directly with your own emotions. And in so doing, you will lessen the intensity of the fear, the sadness, the anger, the shame, and guilt that's going on. And then you're not going to trigger the magnitude of the biology of the stress response because you're doing exactly what your emotions want. They want you to be conscious of it. They want you to feel it. They want you to accept it. And sometimes they're pointing to some kind of change that is important as well.
Right. And so that
So there's a
does then,
tool. There's hundreds.
yeah.
There's many important basic tools, and oh yes, we so encourage you to acquire those information and tools because it matters greatly that you do that.
It
And you
does.
don't
And
trigger then you don't trigger the massive biology of the stress response. Oh, Levon, we do hear there is some sound distortion of a brand new distortion, like
and I
someone.
just got an echo.
So we know about the importance of trying to get this better, and we're working on it. and it's a process. So we haven't got it yet.
Well, at least my cat's not jumping on my back. So, thank you, Dr. R. We always love hearing that. Um, I'm going to skip and ask this one. Can a woman use compounded bioidentical hormones while being treated for breast cancer?
I'm going to pass on the specifics because we, in the menopause method, we do treat a certain percentage of women who've had breast cancer and have had that breast cancer properly treated, but we microscope down to the details of the individuals. So I'm not going to make a blanket statement that you should or you shouldn't. I can tell you in general that number one, we highly encourage you to read a book that is on risk in breast cancer called Estrogen Matters by Avram Blooming and Carol Tavris. And Carolyn, maybe you would post the link to that book.
Yeah, we have it up there.
If you have breast cancer, this is something you really want to become an expert in. Because you're going to ultimately make a decision sooner or later about whether hormones are safe or not safe. And this is the best science. Now, in general, what I'd like to say to this questioner is we're all at risk for thousands of medical diagnoses, men and women. We're also at risk for hundreds of possible cancers because there are hundreds, and we're all at risk for them. And as a man, I have a special risk for prostate cancer, and there's reasons for that. And women have a special identifiable risk for breast cancer, and there's the reason for that. Now, here's the science. Women who have been treated with hormones are at less risk for breast cancer than women who have not been treated with hormones. Same with men. Men who have been treated with testosterone are at less risk for prostate cancer than men who have low testosterone and have not been treated. Now, as far as women who have or had breast cancer, the science that we know is women who have had breast cancer and had that breast cancer properly treated, that's a subject unto itself. If they are then treated with ovarian hormones, they're at less risk for recurrence of that cancer than women who've had breast cancer properly treated and are not on hormones. Now, what I have left out there is whether I would recommend being treated during the process itself.
Right.
So that would require hunkering down on the details of your situation. Your primary focus at this time has everything to do with getting that breast cancer properly treated. And my God, you get that breast cancer properly treated, the healing rate, the 5-year survival rate, the lifetime survival rate is so great. Because when a breast cancer is detected early enough, boy, the cure rate's almost 100%. So that's where the focus should go. And then when the treatment's over, that's when we pick up in the menopause method in treating women who've had prior breast cancers. So to repeat, women who've had breast cancer, well, they get that breast cancer properly treated, they are at an increased risk of recurrence of that breast cancer than a woman who's never had breast cancer has of getting breast cancer. However, women who have had breast cancer, had the breast cancer properly treated, they're at less risk for recurrence of that breast cancer if they're treated with ovarian hormones than if they go untreated with ovarian hormones. That's the science. Estrogen Matter details it out there. You might think, well, no, I have a receptor site. I have a positive receptor site. Well, that's a whole other issue. That's a very gray area. what I said stands, that women who've had breast cancer had the breast cancer properly treated. I didn't specify receptor site or receptor site. The science is you're better off being treated with hormones as far as lowering your risk for recurrence than if you have no hormonal treatment at all.
Big subject, scary
Yeah,
subject,
important subject. I would like to say
lots
to
to
women
talk
that
about.
if you're in the firestorm of getting the treatment, of having, you might still be under the firestorm of having heard the diagnosis, going through the process, going through the treatment. Of course, our hearts go out to you. This is an intense and scary process. But I want to let you know that so many high percentage, more and more every day, women, they're looking at that in the rear view mirror. They do make it through, and they do get cured, and they do not get a recurrence of that cancer, and they even have experiences of, oh my God, that's so far in my rear view mirror. I remember I had breast cancer once. So it's not like it won't affect your life in a way, but if it could really inspire you to also do the healing involved with how you got it, and you can usually identify how you got it. But at any rate, even though you're probably in this very intense period of being treated
Mm.
and all the feelings that can come up, there will come a day where the highest likelihood is you're not even going to think about it because you put it totally behind you, and you're back to living your life. And usually, women are bigger for it. Soul is bigger. Healings take place. So you just don't want to go out and judge any illness, any diagnosis, or breast cancer, or any cancer as being a bad thing. It's part of life, and that's a big subject I just opened up there. The main thing I wanted to say, I can imagine what it's like to go through what you're going through right now. I've been going through things similar in my own life, and I want to let you know there's light at the end of the tunnel. So keep up be rigorous and vigorous in the treatment of that breast cancer, and you can come out the other side bigger and stronger and healthier than ever before. Because these illnesses, they do something beneficial for us, beneficial for our soul, for our heart, for our lives. Isn't that an outrageous thing to say?
It's
Well,
so
they do
true,
in so
though.
many instances. Yes, some people are defeated by illnesses, but some people come out stronger, happier, more capable of love. So I do want to add that because
Beautifully,
I know
beautifully.
the question is probably right in the middle of the firestorm right now, so maybe not so easy to hear. But because I get to, as a physician, I get to deal with women who are in all different stages of breast cancer, for example. And these days, it's far more than I'm getting to work with women who the breast cancer is behind them. They did the treatment, and that can happen to you too, where they go, "Whew, wow, that was an intense firestorm, but I'm on the other side of it. This is getting more interesting than ever before." So,
Bit personal to me, must say.
yeah,
Yeah, and everything you say is true, and I thank you for it. And anybody going through it, God bless, really. But everything Dr. R just said is really very true. And thank you. Um,
is there anything personally you would like to add to that, Carolyn, since you have your own ideas about this one?
well, uh, 18 years ago, I guess, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had just met Daryl. We bonded in a hospital room. I got it back 2 years later, had a double mastectomy, never did reconstruction. I made it through the fire. When I was done, my doctors were like, "You're done. Go enjoy your life. Get out of here." I was like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah." So that's what I did. And yeah, it wasn't fun. I can promise you that. but I did learn a lot. And so I try to help women and coach women who are going through breast cancer in a whole different arena than menopause. So yeah, it's doable. Scary as anything, but it's doable. And I'm sitting here, right? Day by day.
A very cheerful and loving human being, authentic
Aw.
and earnest and precious, and a mover and
Aw.
shaker.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you got to give it away. You know, what are you going to do? Just sit there? You know, I mean, got to help somehow. I mean, that's how I feel. And that's how you and I do. Very, 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 very blessed. So moving on. All right, estrogen dominance. You and I spoke of that last interview. And the questioner writes in, is it possible in regards to estrogen dominance that we might have estrogen blockages or imbalances in estrogen metabolism and clearance? Is there such a thing, if so, as an actual estrogen detox, so to speak?
Well, there is. And again, I want to repeat that the most common causes of excessive symptoms of excessive estrogen, or what seem to be excessive estrogen levels, so you're getting the overstimulatory effects of estrogen. Number one, questions of estrogen dominance do not usually, they usually occur in the 30s and 40s. And that's a time when a woman's estrogen level is significantly lower than it was at the peak of her estrogen output, which was age 20 plus or minus a couple of years. So this estrogen overexpression is occurring at a time when estrogen levels are lower than they've been since she was 20 plus or minus. But estrogen is balanced by the calming effects of progesterone, and is very common for progesterone output to start declining earlier and deeper than estrogen. So therefore, you've got a little more estrogen in relationship to progesterone, and so you get domination of the estrogen effects because the balance of progesterone isn't there sufficiently to balance that progesterone. And that's the main cause of it. Now you can
Right.
that cause can always be accentuated by increased dysfunctional response to stress. I say dysfunctional response because if you have stress and it freaks you out and you don't have tools to deal with it, much like I was giving you ideas about earlier on in today's interview, if you don't have the skills, you can put out some excessive estrogens for a while because you're recruiting the estrogens for the stress response. And so that's how you get that estrogen excessive stimulation effects, and you get uterine cramps, you get bleeding, you get breast tenderness, breast pain, irritability, all kinds of stuff, water retention. Now, what the questioner has put our attention on is, what if the estrogen isn't processed properly?
Right.
And does it build up if it's not processed at a rate that it should be processed? Well, all these hormones are processed. The ovary puts them out as the other glands put out their hormones. They go do their thing all around the body. Then they're floating around in the bloodstream, and they show up in the liver, and the liver does something with these hormones. It converts them biochemically, and it excretes them. and they excretes the hormones into the in the metabolites. When something is converted biochemically, it's referred to metabolization of that original hormone, and the biochemical byproducts are called metabolites. And the liver does a tremendous amount of work there. It takes the basic hormones, transforms them biochemically into metabolites, and then it excretes the metabolites and some hormones as well. And it excretes it into the urine, and it excretes the hormones and the metabolites into the bowel, into the stool. Some of that's showing up in your poop. And
Who knew?
now, how can things get abnormal from that normal elimination process? Well, one of the most common things is the liver isn't functioning fully up to speed.
Yeah.
And, liver issues are common because there's a lot of things that threaten our liver that weren't present on this earth. The main threats to liver when I was in medical school was excessive intake of alcohol, which is a toxic substance when taken in excess. And so you had a lot of people who were addicted to alcohol. And one of the consequences of long-term addiction was, oh boy, did those livers get sick. Because they can only process so much, and if you give them more toxic substance to process than they can manage, it gets the liver sick. And nowadays, there's a lot of other chemicals that are present everywhere in our households unless you're paying attention to it. A lot of people are paying attention to it. They're getting their household cleansers down to vinegar and baking soda, as is going on in my house, or free and clear laundry detergent. Laundry detergent and dish soap, and there's these wonderful products being put out that don't have those chemicals in there, but you got to go hunting for them, and they're wonderful. And that's what I have in my house, and it'll save you a bunch of money too. And you don't have 82 fabric softeners and perfumes and air fresheners, air chemical pumps, known as air quote fresheners, all that stuff, and the dry cleaning fluids and the perfumes and all the stuff. So livers are under challenge as never before. And when you turn towards health conscious practices, which is, been the province of health conscious medicine, naturopaths, and all kinds of people who are health advocates, and that's been going on for a long time. Attention is paid to that liver and detoxifying that liver, giving it a break, letting it air out for a while. And that's a whole process, liver cleanse. Now, liver happens to be downstream or from the gut because the intestinal tract lymphatics drain into the liver. So if there's trouble in Gut City, in River City, the liver is going to be at the mercy of that gut. And, this has been the focus of functional medicine. Carolyn is now a serious and successful A+, did I hear, on a recent test, health coach, studying functional medicine. And a lot of these folks are out there, and they're getting this basic health coaching information, which is the wave of the future, because in medicine, an ounce of prevention is worth about 82 tons of cure. So do it up front.
It's incredible.
And that's this phenomenal role of health coaches. And health coaches are paying a lot of attention to the intestinal tract. And there's a lot of issues that can show up in the intestinal tract for a lot of reasons. And some of those issues can affect the liver. And then there's this direct consequence of abnormal bacteria, for example, living in the intestinal tract. Part of the process of eliminating estrogens is they're secreted into the intestinal tract, and they're excreted with the feces. But some of the estrogens are recycled. The liver binds some of the metabolites of estrogen to chemicals, and for example, glucuronide or sulfate, and that bound up estrogen metabolite gets excreted by the liver into the intestinal tract and should pass out through the feces. Well, there's bacteria that can cleave that wonderful union, making things safe to excrete, that the liver does. And if it does, the gut can reabsorb hormones that have been cleaved, that have been broken up, that have been that wonderful excretion form that they were put together in as a glucuronide or as a sulfate, for example. That bond can be cleaved by, well, for one example, bacteria that produce beta glucuronidase. Just to get down in the weeds here. The bottom line is we want to have healthy gut flora and not an excessive amount of weirdos in there. They're not weird, but they just don't belong in there. We want healthy boundaries. They can go live where they live. We don't want them to live in us. Excessive beta glucuronidase producers. Otherwise, the estrogen levels can get excessive because the metabolization is not proceeding. So it's when you dive down into biology, it is so complex, and it's marvelous in its complexity. And I don't want to make it sound complicated, though. What do? You take care of your liver by keeping your intake of any kind of toxic. That could include pharmaceutical medicines. Can affect the liver. So you get the long list. You do a survey of everything you're getting exposed to in your environment, called your home, called your bedroom, called the air that you're breathing, the water and the things you're drinking, the food you're taking in. The amount of toxic herbicides and pesticides that come in on the non-organic food supply is alarming. I don't know why I didn't mention that first, because that's some of the biggest exposures we get. These horrible chemicals that are put on the agribusiness because the farming methods lead to unhealthy plants, so you got to kill things. Well, how much chemical does it take to kill a bug or a weed? Something mild like fairy dust? No, it takes one intense chemical. And this is coming in on your food daily. If you're not purchasing organic food, agribusiness is just spraying this stuff on there like crazy. And these are some of the biggest threats to the liver. So, moral of the story, cut down your poison intake. Don't get scared. Don't go ballistic here. Give yourself a year to identify all the household chemicals and all the exposures you have, and reduce and eliminate them. It's a project. Your life will get cheaper for you. Yes, you'll have to purchase organic food. There's increased expense there, but when you're not doing processed food and you're buying regular food, it's actually called food. The other stuff is not food, it's food plus chemicals. And it's been genetically modified in many instances. Gewalt, what's going on out there?
Gewalt. Yes, Gewalt is right. They're like food-like substances.
So,
right?
So that's how you take care of the liver. And then sometimes you got to put some esoteric attention into the gut. And sometimes you have to do stool tests to see if there's abnormal critters in there. And sometimes you got to take some herbs or even medications to restore normal balance to the 3.5 pounds of bacteria that we need and love. They're every bit a part of us. There's more bacterial cells in our intestine than there's human cells in our body. We need and love the good ones. We've evolved with them over hundreds of thousands of years. They participate in our health. But if the populations get deranged for various toxic and medicational reasons, I don't know if that word is a word, medicational. But sometimes that needs esoteric attention, stool tests, trying to see what's growing in there, if anything's growing in there. So, yeah, questioner,
All part
that's,
and
you opened
parcel.
up Pandora's box there, and good on you,
True, but
because anyone who wants to spend some time and energy to clean up their environment and what's going into their body, and then do some of the nice things like do an intestinal cleanse or do a liver cleanse. These are all very good things for you. And I'm not going to go into the details because so many health coaches and naturopathic physicians and holistic and functional medicine physicians know all about this stuff. And this has been going on for a long time. So and it's easy for you to do this in your own home. So there.
it is indeed. So there we have that, and I appreciate that answer. It is Pandora's box,
Mhm.
but it's all part and parcel, right? To
Yeah, and
us living.
once you get into the mood and the rhythm, it's not complicated. You can do it yourself. You can get just a little guidance, little coaching. You can do it yourself. And it's going to make such common sense to you. Called don't eat, drink, or breathe poison.
Yeah,
And scour your household to see, unbeknownst to you, if there is poison in your household. And if there is, get rid of it. And clean your house with some kind of clear distilled vinegar and baking soda. Now think of how much money that's going to save you for all these fancy products
yeah, yeah. That they have
to clean
locked
up
up.
your detergents and stuff. And then at the drum beat, the bass note is go out of your way for organic food. Purchase organic. Let go of the bottles, boxes, and cans, and choose organic. Yes, it's a shame. For hundreds of thousands of years, the only food that was available on the planet Earth was organic. And then along comes the industrial age, and that changed. And now you got to go out of your way to get organic food, but it's so prevalent these days.
It's worth it.
I probably have time for one more question, Carolyn, because I've got to stop 5 minutes early today.
And I have such great questions that I don't even know when to ask. Maybe you can explain this one in the 5 minutes. Can you explain exactly what causes the thickening of the uterus and how we can possibly avoid that?
What is referred to as a thickening of
Are you
the
asking?
uterus it's really of the uterine lining,
Yes.
is a
Sorry, didn't
menopausal
mean that.
phenomena. It's a menopausal phenomenon. Every single young menstruating woman once a month has a quote thickening of the lining of the uterus. It's a natural process. That thickening is the developing of a rich, fertile, nurturing soil, so to speak, and it occurs once a month. And it's in preparation to receive a fertilized egg and to be able to nurture it. And when you look at that under a transvaginal ultrasound once a month, if you did, you'd see a quote thickening of the uterine lining called the endometrium. It's natural. It's exactly what happens to every single menstruating woman every single month. When it happens in the menopause, it's because a woman is being treated with estrogen. Because estrogen is one of the principal prime movers of the creation of that monthly quote thickening. I'm not friendly to the term thickening because it's such a natural process. It's the actual development of an endometrial lining that's there to receive a sacred fertilized egg, for God's sakes. That's not called thickening. It's called a normal biologic process. But it occurs in the menopause. It's being occurred because a woman's being treated with estrogen. And so what? We don't care about the formation of an endometrial lining in the menopause. We do care about the formation of something abnormal in the uterus.
Mm.
And when you observe a transvaginal ultrasound, which is a visual image of the endometrium in a menopausal woman, you'll get comments like thickening. Well, if a woman's on estrogen, she's going to get a certain amount of thickening. We prefer to not to have too much thickening, but it's not the thickening that's the problem. It's something abnormal up there. So irregularity in a vaginal ultrasound.
Got it.
That we're concerned about. If there's something irregular in there, we want a biopsy of that. We want to get thee to thy gynecologist, and they're going to do a DNC or a biopsy of that. It's rare. It's not common, but endometrial cancer does occur. I've seen it 2 times in 25 years of
Wow.
specializing in treating women in menopause, but it does happen. Now, what's considered to be the healthiest situation when you're treating a menopausal woman with estrogen is not to get too much of an endometrial lining. But I'm not going to say that that causes cancer. In my view, hormones do not cause cancer. In fact, there's many women out there who are taking so robust dosages of estrogen that they're not only getting an endometrial lining, they're menstruating. Their menstruating continues. Or they get their menstrual period back. And that's, if you look at a transvaginal ultrasound in a woman who's doing that, you're going to see endometrial lining. You still with me? I can't tell if we're frozen or not.
You're kind of going in and out. And
maybe viewer would tell us if we're totally. Okay. So it's the endometrial lining that doesn't look like a regular endometrial lining. Yeah, sometimes doses are so high that the menstruation resumes or continues. That in itself is not a bad thing, but I've spoken before about I'm not a fan of getting youthful levels of estrogen, and it's primarily because of the breast and the proliferation of breast glandular tissue. So that's a whole other subject that I won't be able to address today. And what I'd like to do, Carolyn, is you can get a thickening as reported by a transvaginal ultrasound in a menopausal woman being treated with estrogen, but it's not the thickening that's the problem. In my view, it's if there's an abnormal endometrial lining. And I want to take this opportunity to say Merry Christmas to everybody. I don't know if you can still hear me, Carolyn.
Yes,
Merry
we can hear you.
Christmas to everybody. And we're not going to be here next week, the pre-Christmas week. Lots of fun activities planned in my world. And I won't be here for next Tuesday or Thursday, but we'll resume right after Christmas. And
we will.
Merry Christmas to everybody. And we'll see you
Merry
after
Christmas.
Christmas.
To you too. Merry Christmas to all of the wonderful people who came up. Thank you for the beautiful compliments to both of us. We love doing this. And really enjoy, be happy, be safe, eat a lot. Right? I think I lost Dr. Rosensweet. Uh-oh. Well, anyway. So, thank you, Dr. Rosensweet.
Until next week. The week after next week, until after Christmas. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Carolyn. You and Daryl have a wonderful Christmas and Hanukkah.
Happy, ho, ho, ho.